Hey, it's Tasty Fear here, and today I want to talk about Ranni's rune and the amber egg. Now, I did a video on my theory of how the runes are the great runes get to where they are, so give that a watch if you want a little bit more context. But this is just kind of the story of Ranni, so it's going to be pretty focused. There's going to be a lot of speculation, spoilers ahead. This is my theory on some of Ranni's plot. It's been covered before, certainly, different takes, but I don't know if this story exactly has been put forward. So I hope you like it. Let's get into it. The plot that we follow, Ranni's scheming, starts with the Night of the Black Knives. And not necessarily on that night, but how she formulated this plan to steal a fragment of the Rune of Death from Malekith. And she does so to create a weapon to kill gods and demigods. Now, her group that does this, the Black Knife Assassins, are a group of Newman women. Marika is also from Newman, or is also a Newman woman. And so there is a lot of theories that Marika and Ranni work together to make this happen. There is a sentence Malekith says about being betrayed by Marika, and whether or not that ties into that story will come into play later. But at least know that Ranni is setting up this plan for the fragment of the Rune of Death to be stolen and forged into these weapons to kill a god. Now, exactly how this works isn't completely clear, but what it does state is that she planned to kill Godwyn the Golden, another demigod, the firstborn demigod as far as we're told, and that by killing his soul and her body at the same time with this weapon of the fragment of the Rune of Death, that somehow Destined Death won't understand that, oh, it's two separate beings who are being affected. It kind of fulfills the body and soul completion of a death, and therefore Godwyn's body continues living while Ranni's soul continues living. She wants to free her soul so she can move more freely as she tries to extract herself from the plan of the Two Fingers and the Greater Will, this outer god who is in control of the Elden Ring and the lands between currently. Now, in my previous video, I talked about how the Great Runes that each of the demigods have could very well be a conduit of influence by the Greater Will, right? So the Greater Will controls the Elden Ring, and so through the pieces of the Elden Ring, which are each of the Great Runes, they can exert their influence of the Greater Will into these demigods. So it would make sense that she'd want to discard of her body and discard of her Great Rune. Now, the big theory that I'm putting forth is that the Great Rune of the Unborn, the one that we see cradled by Rennala, is this rune that Ranni discarded, and that she discarded that rune with her body on the Night of the Black Knives. So let's go back and see how Rennala gets it, and then we'll tie Ranni's plot through tracking the Great Rune to the Amber Egg and how it shows up with Rennala. So Rennala is gifted this egg by Radagon, her husband. At least her husband until he leaves after giving her this amber egg and returns to Marika's side, becomes her consort instead. There's a lot of reasons. Obviously, this would be pretty traumatizing. They've sired 3 children together, Ranni, Radahn, and Rykard. And so having fallen in love, creating a peace through the Ranni, Queen of the Full Moon, leader of Raya Lucaria, and Radagon, head of the Golden Host, a army sent from Lindell and essentially representing the Greater Will, the Golden Order, and America. They find peace, they fall in love. It's quite a beautiful story, and Radagon seems to really take a good place in Raya Lucaria, right? He starts to study magic. They have their children together. It's complicated, but at the very least, while they are together, it seems loving. Until he just ups and leaves. Now, whatever reason he has for that is kind of separate to what's happening. I mean, everything is tied together. It's hard to keep every thread in order when talking about this kind of speculative lore. But for following the Great Rune of the Unborn, the fact that it's Ranni's and how it ends up in the Amber Egg, it's not really important why Radagon leaves. What's more important is that he seems to care and put effort towards this relationship he has with Ranni, and then also that he gifts this egg to her. So, what I believe happens is Ranni knows her body is tied to the Great Rune that she has, and she does not want it anymore. So, to free herself of that, she needs to rid her body and the Great Rune, which she does on the night of the Black Knives. However, she doesn't tell her mother this because she knows it'll break her mother's heart, or maybe it wouldn't. Ranni is very secretive. She tries to, her plots are very intricate, and she seems to be the only one who really knows exactly what she has in mind to carry out, destroying the Golden Order, and at the very least killing the Two Fingers, if we go with the Dark Moon ending, eventually usurping the power of the Greater Will. So, because she keeps this very secret, it makes sense that she would maybe not want to tell her mother for whatever reason. Maybe Ranni likes to chatter, or would be so opposed to it that it would get in the way of Ranni's plans. If we go back now and see that the group of Newman women who seem to be carrying out Ranni's plan could easily have a tie to Marika, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that Ranni and Marika were working together. In which case, because Radagon and Marika are one and the same, Radagon would have some working knowledge of Ranni and her plot. And I think that he somehow finds out about this. This could be Ranni just telling him, hey, Dad, I am going on this crazy mission. This is something that I need to do, and I'm letting you know. You can't get in the way, but here's a heads up. Maybe she knew that, or she thinks that the Great Runes are important to Marika and Radagon, and so knowing that she wants to discard of hers, she doesn't want that Great Rune falling into the wrong hands. Or it could be that Radagon just figured it out through whatever machinations he has, and then stepped in, as I'm about to say. Whatever the reason is, Ranni is discarding of her Great Rune. Radagon knows about it. And so she sets up the Night of Black Knives. Her body is killed, her Great Rune discarded there with her body at the top of the Divine Tower. Her soul is now free, and she begins the rest of her plot, putting the rest of her plot into motion. And Radagon comes in to where her body is, where this Great Rune is, and encases it in amber. Now, there's a couple reasons that I think my theory as Great Runes kind of need a body to house it in, and why he would trap it in amber. Those two theories coalesce. So, the amber medallions state, a primordial life energy resides inside. And then Selin also tells us a little bit about amber. she says, golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality. So we know that the golden amber in the world of the lands between is specifically related to some sort of vitality, some life essence. So acting as almost like a proxy body, because it has this power of life and housing life, Radagon scoops up the rune and traps it in this amber. And because he has fostered this relationship with Rennala, he brings this amber egg with Ranni's rune to her. And now we see Rennala in the state that we find her in Raya Lucaria when we play the game as the Tarnished. She has taken this egg and has lost a child that was very important to her. Maybe, a mother-daughter relationship is something that, is just how every kind of familial relationship is unique. That can be a very, very close and unique relationship to have. And so Rennala knows what happens now. Radagon has gifted her this rune, essentially saying, Ranni is dead, the way that, at the very least, the way that you know Ranni. So Rennala begins to try to utilize the power of the rune and her powerful magic to rebirth Ranni, to bring her back, give her a new body. Obviously, this doesn't work, especially since we know Ranni's spirit is still about. We don't understand the full machinations of like what rebirth could mean. We do know that it works for us when she births us anew using the Great Rune. And so I think there's a good chance that because Ranni exists, she can birth these bodies, but they're just kind of husks. They don't really have any mind of their own, any will of their own. And so that's why we see all of these dozens of small clones, I guess, crawling around in the boss room when we find her. So this is why I think out of anything that makes the most sense, the Great Rune of the Unborn is Ranni's rune. And to further that kind of narrative, we have Ranni stepping in during the fight with Rennala. Now, this kind of leads me to believe that Ranni did know that Radagon was going to take her Great Rune. So, again, whether she planned it with Radagon, like face-to-face, I'm laying out what I want you to do, or Radagon kind of knew what she was going to do, Ranni kind of knew that Radagon knew, and things just kind of fell into place. So she essentially lays a curse, a trap, a bit of illusory magic, which we know that she can do. We see her use this kind of illusory or like summoning, like the spirit ash bell. We see this kind of illusion magic as part of Ranni's repertoire. And so she lays this trap on her own Great Rune, kind of like infusing this power into it so that if her mother ever is put into danger, that this magic will take effect, summon almost a simulacrum of Rennala, a illusion, a bit of magic that has Rennala when she is as the strongest that she could be. The way that Ranni probably remembers her mother, in case somebody comes to damage her, as we do. And after the first section of the boss fight with Rennala, that's when the magic takes place. We hear Ranni's voice, and we see this magic kind of come into being, and that's when we fight Rennala. And she's much more powerful in this form. Although it's fleeting. We beat her, and her body remains in the state of mind that we found her in, instead of the much more prestigious Rennala that we fight in the second phase. So this is why, like, to me, one of the most clear representations of like a rune needing to be housed by a body. So I know this is a little bit of a shorter theory. It's, again, something that's been covered, but I think with this theory that great runes are birthed by Marika into her children, and that is a good reason that Ranni like would need to discard of her body to continue her plot, working against the greater will. All of this kind of ties in with the amber housing ancient remnants of life and being able to house vitality and the like. That this amber egg and the great rune of the unborn are Ranni's. Now, this certainly begs the question as to whether Radagon and Marika have truly their own autonomy, or if they are more aligned somehow, since they're the same being, but on occasion they kind of have like opposing ideas. Marika smashing the Elden Ring, Radagon attempting to repair it, Radagon taking this great rune, kind of putting it in amber and giving it to Rennala instead of maybe taking it away, putting it somewhere safer, or squirreling it away to let some kind of hideaway. But that kind of completes the narrative from my video talking about the great runes tied to bodies. And so I just wanted to clarify this possible plot line or story that we're laying forward of this section of Ranni's plot, and how her great rune is moved around, why Radagon gifts her this egg at all. All of these are questions that aren't explicitly answered, and sure that this is speculation, but it at least gives us something to talk about. I haven't really... I've heard some theories that maybe it's Miquella's rune, but it's hard for me to kind of like tie those two together, where this one with Ranni seems to fit very neatly. I love the idea of her going to her father and being like, Mom's not going to be able to deal with this. And also, like, I need to go on this mission to thwart the greater will. And I'm letting you know because I know that you are kind of working against the greater will as well. But Mom can't know until I have kind of enacted things. And Radagon understanding and supporting his daughter, and then also feeling sadness for his wife Rennala, because she loses a daughter, and trying to gift her something before he's called back, to gift that connection with her daughter before being called back to Lindell. Whether it's a good gift or not, I don't know. That's kind of hard to say. It certainly is. Rennala's story is quite tragic, but yeah. So I think I'll leave it there. I know this is just a little bit of a narrative filling in some pieces, but it does bring me to thinking about like Raya Lucaria, and specifically some of the enemies that seem out of place in the world of the Lands Between of Elden Ring. So there's the Abductor Virgin at the bottom of the water wheel in Raya Lucaria. And then there's also a bunch of enemies that I found very interesting on the leading up the way to Mount Gelmir, and a cave that kind of like blew my mind when I was talking about it with my husband, and he mentioned something. It just kind of sparked like, oh, this makes so much sense. So I want to get into, in the next video, some enemies that are in places that we, on like the surface, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and then also like allies and what people are allying against the greater will, and where they're sending different forces within the Lands Between. So I'll cover that in the next video, and it'll just get us thinking a little bit about like, oh, there's more at play here than we think when we see an enemy that's kind of weird. A lot of times we beat it, we move on. But there is, I mean, everything in Elden Ring was crafted with very specific lore in mind, even if they don't tell us outright or want to leave it ambiguous. I think that they always had a plan for pretty much each enemy placement and the story that goes along with that. So please subscribe and definitely comment questions you have. I want to interact with the community a little bit more. So any questions that you have, or like if I said something that made you go, wait, that doesn't make sense, but I have, a different theory that kind of connects those 2 points, let me know. This is what the reason that I'm making these videos is just kind of to reach out and hopefully, spark ideas within the community. I'll probably be streaming soon as well. I want to do a lore through, I guess, just kind of laid back Elden Ring play. I love doing co-op, so just sending my summoning sign out and helping those who need it. So I'd love to have people to chat with and run ideas by as we help out the community and have a little fun with a new playthrough. I think my 4th at this point. So, all right, well, until the next one, bye.